How's your cold?
It's powerful. Keep your distance. Okay, guys. Good afternoon. This is week 2 for the Senate of its 2026 session. Obviously, started our session in December, and as I have said before, we'll finish now by the end of February. So we won't have any additional time in here. There's no additional cost for the work that we did in December. And I've heard a couple people refer to this as like a shorter session than normal. It really isn't when you start looking at what we did in December. And I'm grateful to say, as I have before, that our committee chairs worked pretty hard in December. That's why we've got bills already on second and third reading now. So we've come in here in January with a good start. You've probably seen a press release on our priorities. Just a couple of bills. One pertains to the bail amendment that Senator Cook has filed, at SJR 1, to outside of murder and treason, gives judges a possibility of holding somebody without bail if the evidence is very clear of guilt, and 2, that there's clear and convincing evidence that society can't be kept safe if they are allowed to get out. So that's one thing, and there's a couple other bills that kind of surround that topic that we'll work on that are very germane to that piece. And the other is Senate Bill 1, which is ties in or couples with some of the provisions of the big beautiful bill that was passed in Washington D.C. this summer, and also continues to try and make sure that we are executing our programs, things that are important like Medicaid, with integrity and fidelity, making sure that the people that really need to be on them are on them, but that if you have means beyond that you're not on those programs, because we want it to be for the people who really need it. We need to preserve it for that. So, having said those comments, I'll take whatever questions you may have.
The House today basically did a lot of things on affordability, whether it's energy prices, housing costs. Is the Senate going to do anything in the affordability to make life more affordable for Hoosiers?
Yeah, we're looking at this. First of all, we work on that all the time. We've cut taxes 20 times in 10 years. Property tax last year was a big cut that, 2/3 of homeowners are going to see a smaller property tax bill in 26 than they saw in 2025. And even this year, income tax went down January 1st, down to 2.95. It'll go down next year to 2.90. And even beyond that, assuming that the economy continues to stay robust, it will continue to go down. So we're trying to find ways to lower the cost for Hoosiers all the time. The other thing we've been working on is trying to make sure that the jobs and the opportunities here in Indiana continue to be good, high-paying jobs that are going up and up and up. You can tell that by in 2024 the capital investment of $39 billion, and as Governor Braun announced during the summer, the weight of some of those jobs that have been coming in here and that came in 2025 are over $40 an hour, which is far better than the average cost wage in the state of Indiana, and about 17% better than the national average. And Indiana is a low-cost state when it compares to other states. So we're continuing to keep that as an absolute priority for Indiana.
Could you go into more detail regarding Senate Bill 1? What provisions exactly pertaining to Medicaid and SNAP could we see?
Well, you're just going to see making sure that opportunities to check to make sure that the people that are on that or asking to be on that are people that are have the income requirements that allow them to be on it, and making sure that there are people that aren't legally allowed to be here that are getting benefits from the state of Indiana, things like that.
How much of that is codifying into law executive orders from the governor as opposed to actually writing new state law? Because some of the stuff is already in policy.
Well, so if there's an executive order, that's not a state law. So we're trying to, some of that is, quite a bit of that is codifying what's already out there, but it feels like good policy.
How did you arrive at those priorities? Because you look at the other 3 caucuses, it's affordability, and then your priorities are a little bit different. How did you guys arrive at those?
Well, we just, I don't know that we're out of whack with the other caucuses. I mean, we talk and work all the time with them. These are things that we feel like are important. The idea of making sure that government is run efficiently and correctly without a lot of fraud is really important to probably everybody in this building, frankly. And we've seen some of that fraud play out in states like Minnesota, for instance, where it's important to people, it's important to us.
Some Democrats have expressed concerns with the bail amendment Amendment, arguing that it may be too broad. What would your response to that concern be?
Well, I think there's a lot of safety measures in there. First of all, a judge will be making that decision, so it's not just an automatic decision that happens. And second of all, you've got to have the language in there says that the proof has to be strong, and that there's clear and convincing evidence, which is a heightened standard to say that there's not another way to keep the society or the public safe. So there's a lot of protections in there for that.
With the growth of the state surplus from the new revenue forecast, how are you going to balance what tax cuts could be implemented from the federal changes, and at the same time balancing that with what the needs are, obviously with SNAP, Medicaid, daycare closures? How do you balance all those, and how far will you go with those tax
Well,
cuts?
I mean, keep in mind, we're not in a budget year, right? I was grateful. I think everyone was grateful to see that the revenue forecast kind of turned positive again from previous to the last April. But it doesn't mean that immediately, because that may or may not come to fruition. It doesn't mean that we're obviously guaranteed to get those dollars. The bottom line is right now that it's not a budget session. We're going to take a look at some opportunities we have to work on affordability here in the Statehouse and certainly in the Senate, but we're not planning on opening up the budget in any real way.
How
Is
far
this
will you go
in
with?
response to the allegations of fraud in Minnesota, or is it already in the works?
It was already in the works, but it just shows how relevant it is.
How far will you go with implementing those federal tax cuts?
We're talking through that now.
You don't have any idea. I think it was like $900 million over 2 years was what the projection from DOR on that. Do you think you'll go right that?
Well,
far?
we're probably not going to see a $900 million number, but we're talking through it now. I know Senator Holman has a hearing this afternoon to begin those conversations.
Turning Point USA apparently has been talking about primary challenges. I'm hearing that may try to fund primary challenge against Greg Good, who voted against redistricting. Any thoughts on? It is election year, and half the Senate is up for primaries.
Yeah, it's an election year. It comes around every 4 years for us in the Senate, and for about half of us every 2 years. So, but primaries are a part of life. Is serving in the Indiana Senate, in the General Assembly. So we'll deal with those like we do every 2 years.
One more? Are you good? Thanks,
Good?
guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody.